A deafening crash tore through the California sunset on September 30th, 1955. James Dean, Hollywood's brightest star, vanished in his silver Porsche, only 24 years old. He ruled the screen with Rebel Without a Cause, his defiant gaze captivating millions, and his burning love for Pier Angeli etched deep in his heart. But behind the stage lights, Dean was a lost soul. He hid the pain of losing his mother, a dark secret from childhood, and an unsent marriage license bearing the name of the woman he loved. He flashed a radiant smile on screen, but his eyes always seemed adrift, as if fleeing from himself. Was that crash just fate, or did a Porsche curse, or even a Hollywood conspiracy pull him into the darkness? James Dean wasn't just a star. He was the tragedy of a man who dared to live true. Today, join me as we explore his story. Has his light gone out, or has it simply faded into legend? Stay with me. Friends, Chapter 1, A First Loss That Shaped a Future Tragedy. Picture a young boy racing through golden cornfields in Fairmount, Indiana, where the sunlight's too bright to see the tears he hides inside. Behind him, a small house has just lost the one person who believed in his dreams. That was Jimmy Dean. Born in 1931, growing up in the tough days of the Great Depression, his parents tried raising frogs, but that dream fell apart like so many hopes back then. For Jimmy, his mother, Mildred, was his whole world. She built little cardboard theaters, taught him the violin, and told stories under the stars. But in 1938, when he was only 9, cancer stole her away. Jimmy stood at her grave, screaming questions with no answers. After that, no one heard him cry again. They sent him away, like an old keepsake no one knew what to do with. Fairmount was a new place, but old memories wouldn't let go. Jimmy moved in with his aunt and uncle on a Quaker farm. He played basketball in the evening sun, spoke in class like a grown-up, but at home, his eyes fixed on the ceiling, imagining he could fly away from it all. Jimmy loved things that moved: fast bicycles, model planes, a fleeting glance. After losing his mother, he hated standing still. Maybe that's why, later, the Porsche wasn't just a car. It was a way to disappear. But a darker secret gnawed at him. Elizabeth Taylor, in a 2011 conversation, said Jimmy once broke down, whispering a name, Rev DeWeird, a local pastor, someone no one mentioned later. No accusations, no investigations, just a boy who grew up with eyes no longer innocent. That pain turned Jimmy into a restless soul. He threw himself into acting, as if the stage could help him forget. But the social pressures of the 1930s, with rigid ideas about masculinity, forced him to hide his heart. He was judged, seen as an oddity, though no one yet knew who he'd become. Deep inside, hope still burned a dream of Hollywood, a place where he could be himself. But the loss of his mother and a secret he couldn't share planted the seeds of a later tragedy. Every bicycle ride, every dream he sketched, brought him closer to that silver Porsche, the car that would carry him away forever. Was that pain the spark that drove Jimmy down a path of no return? Chapter 2, A Truth Forced to Hide Behind Hollywood's Glare. The blazing red jacket, the half smile that melted hearts. Millions of eyes adored James Dean, Hollywood's brightest star, but in his eyes, there was no one. Just a cold void the stage lights could never reach. In 1954, his role as Cal Trask in East of Eden launched him to the top. He danced through a bean field, ignoring the script, as if telling his own life story. Director Elia Kazan stood frozen, calling it a moment of genius. The public hailed him as the new Marlon Brando, a rebel icon, a star who exploded overnight. But that glamour was a golden cage, trapping his heart in darkness. Hollywood in the 1950s was a brutal arena, thick with prejudice. Rumors about Dean's sexuality spread like wildfire. He'd lived with Rogers Brackett, an older radio director who opened doors to showbiz, but William Bast, Dean's close friend, shared a chilling secret hidden under Dean's bed was a notebook with a drawing a lizard with Brackett's face, distorted, screaming as if cursed. Dean sketched it on lonely nights, his hand trembling. Friends said they'd never seen him so afraid. Was it a silent cry or a symbol, a warning only Dean understood? Warner Brothers made things worse. They forced Dean to maintain a straight image to sell tickets, turning him into a polished product. Some said every time Dean slipped and spoke truthfully in interviews, the studio would call, cut the segment, erase the records. A set worker even whispered about a secret meeting where executives planned a masculine Dean campaign. No minutes, just silence. The press didn't let up either. One headline called him a strange rebel, hinting at his private life, stirring public gossip. Every scrutinizing glance, every whisper behind his back, cut into Dean like a knife. He once confided to a friend, "I don't want to live with one hand tied behind my back." But Hollywood gave him no choice. Dean fought back by living faster. He stirred trouble on set, deliberately riling co-star Raymond Massey to draw real emotion. At night, he raced cars down dusty roads, the engine's roar a challenge to the world. But the shame of hiding, of wearing the mask of a perfect star, left him lonelier. In cold hotel rooms, he sat alone, staring at city lights, wondering who he was. Every turn of the wheel, every press of the gas, was like fleeing himself, racing toward a nameless fate where the silver Porsche waited to carry him away. Did Hollywood drive Dean to those dangers? Or was it the daily denial of his true self that made him floor the pedal toward the abyss, where no stage light could follow? Chapter 3. A fragile happiness that pushed Dean to despair. On a California beach, under silver moonlight, James Dean held Pierangeli's hand. They laughed, but something in Dean's eyes suggested he knew this dream wouldn't last. The sand beneath them was warm, but his heart wasn't. In 1954, they met on a film set, and love ignited like a flame. Pier, a beautiful Italian actress, was a rare light in Dean's dark world. They exchanged small rings, joking like teenage lovers, running along the shore, hair whipping in the wind. Dean once told a friend, "Everything about Pier is beautiful, especially her soul." To him, she was a refuge, a hope that life could be kinder. But Hollywood doesn't believe in fairy tales. Pier's mother despised Dean. He wasn't Catholic. He wore leather jackets, smoked, and lived like tomorrow didn't exist. Warner Brothers was even harsher. They forbade him from marrying because a single, charming bachelor sold more tickets. The 1950s, with its strict moral codes, crushed their love. Pier fought her mother, tried to hold on to Dean, but the pressure was too much. She got engaged to singer Vic Damone. Rumors say Dean stood outside the church on her wedding day, sitting on his motorcycle, watching her step out in white, his eyes lifeless, after his death, in a wooden box hidden under the floorboards. They found a marriage license with Pierangeli's name as the bride. No one knows when he planned to send it, or if he ever did. It never reached her. Losing Pierre was like losing the last piece of his soul. Dean showed up at late-night parties, eyes red, smiling but clutching his drink tightly. Once, he drove through the night without headlights, just listening to the wind howl. Some said he was tempting fate. Others whispered he just wanted to see who'd stop him if he plunged into the dark. The public called him a reckless rebel, judging his wild lifestyle. But few saw the broken heart behind that defiant grin. He was thrust into the spotlight, but forbidden to be himself. Every car race, every press of the gas, was an attempt to forget Pierre, forget the whispers, forget himself. That unfinished love was a wound that wouldn't heal, pushing him into a spiral of self-destruction where speed became his only drug. But that speed, like fate, led him to the silver Porsche waiting at the road's end. Some say that wedding killed the last living part of Dean. If Pierre had turned back that day, would he have raced toward the light, or would the Porsche still have waited? At a curve no one saw coming. Chapter 4. Pressures building toward tragedy. Dean sat alone in a Sunset Boulevard hotel room, lights off. The TV buzzed with a toothpaste ad. He bit his nails until they bled, his fingers trembling as if holding a secret he couldn't speak. Outside was Glory, rebel without a cause. In 1955, made him the icon of restless youth. The red jacket, tousled hair, and defiant stare captivated millions. But in that room, only the echo of a boy who screamed at his mother's grave remained. Now trapped in Hollywood's cage of light, he was a star, but also a puppet. Jack Warner, the Warner Brothers mogul, called him a little punk and banned him from racing during Giants filming. Dean rebelled on set, goading co-star Raymond Massey into near quitting just to capture a real look of disdain, one Dean knew too well. On the Giant set, after a night shoot, Elizabeth Taylor recalled Dean slumping to the ground, shoulders shaking, eyes lost. "I can't sleep," he whispered. Then, like opening a long-locked door, he spoke of his mother, the woman who taught him to dream, and a pastor he wouldn't name. Tears rolled down his cheeks, but he laughed, as if pain was a joke. The public adored Dean, but judged him mercilessly. They called him reckless, a strange guy, gossiping about his private life in tabloids. Every whisper, every prying glance, reminded him he'd never be good enough for Hollywood. He tried therapy, digging into the pain of losing his mother and childhood scars. But the darkness stayed. Dean once said, "When I drive fast enough, I don't hear anything." But the silver Porsche wasn't just a car. It was silence, death in metal form, waiting at every turn. He raced in Palm Springs, Bakersfield. The engines roar a defiance of the world, but each race left him lonelier, as if speed was the only way to escape himself. He was pushed into the spotlight, but barred from being real. Every press of the gas was an attempt to drown out the judgments, the heartbreak. But fate had its own path. Was speed the only place no one could catch him? Or was it how Dean tied himself to the wheel, letting his past drive him to the end? Chapter 5. Despair and Final Omens. A gas station on Route 466, late September, 1955. James Dean smiled at someone, but his eyes held something like a goodbye. No one knew it was his last photo. Or maybe he did. He'd just finished Rebel Without a Cause, the film that made him an icon. He was filming Giant, his final role. His eyes lit up, talking about his brand new Porsche 550 Spyder. He spent hours checking every bolt, every curve, as if the car was a dream he could touch. But around him, dark omens gathered, like pieces of an unsolved puzzle. Eartha Kitt, a close friend, recalled their last hug a cold one. His soul wasn't there, she said, like Dean was already gone, leaving just a shell. Her words cut like a knife through those who knew him. Photographer Dennis Stock once shot Dean lying in a coffin at a Fairmount funeral home, his eyes staring into nothing. Fans later called it a prophetic photo, an unanswered clue. Then a truck driver, unnamed, said he saw a car with no plates tailing Dean for 15 minutes on the road to Salinas. He reported it to police. No investigation followed. The story vanished. But passing Blackwell's corner, he still checked his rearview mirror, as if something lingered. Dean defied it all. Warner Brothers banned him from driving, but he set out, stopping at Blackwell's corner for apples and a Coke. Just 25 miles from the crash, the public called him crazy, judging his reckless lifestyle. But few saw him a young man torn by his past, by whispers behind his back, by a Hollywood that wouldn't let him be true. Speed was his escape, where he didn't hear his mother's voice, the pastor's, or the critics. But each press of the gas brought him closer to an unavoidable fate. Did he sense death coming? Or had someone chosen that day to end his story? Chapter 6. The Mystery of Death and the Porsche Curse. 5:45 in the evening, September 30th, 1955. A metal scream shattered the air on Route 466 near Chalem, California. James Dean, behind the wheel of his silver Porsche, was gone forever at 24. He died instantly, neck broken, legs pinned under the pedals. His passenger, Rolf Vutherick, survived with painful injuries. Donald Turnipseed, the other driver, was barely hurt. Dean wasn't speeding, just 55 to 60 miles an hour, as a 1992 exponent analysis showed. But death came, on time, at that curve, as if someone had set the clock. Dean's death wasn't just an accident. Whispers spoke of a Porsche curse. A mechanic's leg was crushed when the car slipped off a lift. A wheel fitted to another car caused a crash days later. The car's body vanished from storage. No records remained, only stories and fear. Rumors grew. The Porsche wasn't a car, but a curse in metal. A darker theory emerged. Some whispered Warner Brothers had warned Dean, keep defying us, and there'd be consequences. No proof, just rumors, and the eerie silence of those behind the stage lights. Dean was judged in life and death. The public called him a reckless fool, but few saw him as a victim of a Hollywood that forced him into a mold, a society that rejected his true self, a past that wouldn't let go. He once told friends, "I want to live true, even for one day." But each press of the gas tied him to fate. Was that crash an accident, or the climax of a world that didn't want him to exist? The Porsche hit Turnipseed's car. But was it fate, or an invisible hand that didn't want Dean to live true? Epilogue: the immortal legacy of a star in Fairmount, Indiana. Thousands of fans gather yearly, touching James Dean's gravestone. They say, if you touch it at dawn, it feels warm, as if he never left, as if part of his soul still lingers in the wind. Dust and unfinished dreams. Over 70 years later, Dean remains an immortal icon. The red jacket from Rebel Without a Cause, the glasses, the defiant stare-shaped fashion, music, and youth culture. He earned 2 posthumous Oscar nominations, a rare feat. His star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame still shines. The James Dean Festival in Fairmount draws fans worldwide, from doctors to bikers. Proof he never faded. Merchandise with his image. from t-shirts to dolls, generates millions. As one paper put it, Dean didn't die. He vanished into legend. But Dean's legacy isn't just glamour. It's a story of loss, struggle, and fate. He lived true, defying social prejudice and a Hollywood that boxed him in. The cost was steep, a heart broken by Pier Angeli, scars from childhood, and relentless public judgment. He was called reckless, a strange guy. But few saw him a young man who just wanted to love, live, and escape the darkness. The mystery of his death lingers, the Porsche curse, rumors of Warner Brothers, or just a fateful curve no one knows. But maybe Dean chose to live fast, love fiercely, and burn out like a shooting star, brilliant and brief. Dear friends, James Dean wasn't just an actor. He was the dream of those who dare to rebel, love, and live. He left a secret about his heart, the Porsche, and what Hollywood didn't want us to know. What do you think? Did Dean not die, but simply take another turn into a world ready for his true self? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for joining me on this journey. See you next time.